You're listening to real paranormal experiences told just as they happened. Every story, every encounter, every shadow. True accounts that'll make you question what's waiting in the dark. When my mom was young, they lived on an isolated farm with my grandmother. The nearest neighbor was a mile away. The house sat 150 meters back from the highway, connected only by a dark, patchy driveway. My grandmother would leave at dawn to work at the farm and sell produce, returning most nights at around 6 p.m. on the evening bus. My Aunt Anna, the eldest, was only 12, far too young to watch 5 siblings alone, but those were brutal times. My grandmother did what she had to do to feed her children. They had a routine. When my grandma came home, she'd call out from the highway for help carrying the groceries. The children would race down the driveway because she always brought them snacks. One evening, around 6 p.m., they heard her voice clearly echoing from a familiar distance. "Come out and help me with my stuff." 4 of them rushed outside, my mother included. They thought it was odd they didn't hear the bus, but dismissed it. The driveway had no lights when they reached the highway. No one was there. The road stretched empty in both directions. After calling out several times, my aunt felt a sudden chill and ordered everyone back inside. That's when the realization hit them. They had all heard it, my grandmother's exact voice, her usual words at her usual time. Some began to cry, others prayed after locking all the doors and windows. No one slept that night. The next morning, my grandmother returned early. She'd missed the last bus and had to stay in town overnight. So, who called them out into the darkness? Right after my parents got married, they decided to find a small place together and start their new life with each other. They found a cheap 2-bed, 1-bath house close to my dad's job. They weren't picky since it was meant to be temporary until my mom finished nursing school and they could save enough money to buy a home. They moved in shortly after finding it, got settled, and for the first month, everything was completely normal. This was until my dad's grandmother gave them a little clown figurine she found at a yard sale. It was one of those vintage wind-up ones that spins in a circle and plays a creepy old children's song. My mom has always hated clowns and thought it was unsettling, but she didn't want to be rude, so she put it up on a shelf in their kitchen and tried to ignore it. Not even a week later, she started noticing it would randomly spin and sing by itself. Sometimes it would start up when she walked past it, when she was home alone, and in the middle of the night for no reason at all. It kept happening until she finally decided to throw it out. She tossed it into the trash and figured that was the end of it. A few days later, after the garbage had already been picked up, she walked into the kitchen and found the clown sitting right back on the same shelf. My mom was freaked out and showed her mother-in-law. The second she picked it up, the clown's head started spinning rapidly, while the rest of it stayed still. My dad's mom, who is very religious, immediately started praying over it, then drove it straight to the dump herself. They never saw it again, but after that, everything in the house just seemed to get worse. One day, my mom was in the driveway, unloading groceries, when she saw a tall man in a black hat, standing about 10 feet away from her by a tree, staring directly at her. She tried to not make eye contact and started walking up the driveway. He first began walking toward her, but then sped up. My mom luckily made it to the front door in time and locked it. She told my dad, but he brushed it off and said it was probably some random creep or a crackhead, and they most likely wouldn't come back. A while later, her niece and nephew came to stay for a night while my dad was out fishing. In the middle of the night, they ran into her room crying, saying a tall man with a black hat had been standing over them. It kept happening every time they stayed over, until they eventually refused to come back. A while after that happened, my dad was out fishing again when my mom heard a loud crashing sound coming from their spare room. It was a room with a pool table, a desk, and a couple of chairs. It sounded like all of the furniture was being violently thrown against the walls over and over. She freaked out, thinking someone had broken in, and immediately called her mom, who told her to leave the house and call my dad. My dad came home, and when they went inside, the room was completely untouched. Everything was exactly where it had been. After this, my mom refused to even step foot in the house if she was going to be home alone. Anytime my dad was gone, she went to her mom's house until he got back, but even that didn't stop whatever was going on. Not long after, an old disheveled woman started showing up in their yard at night. she'd stand under the large oak tree in front of their house, mumbling to herself for hours. She did this several times a week. Around the 10th time, my dad finally had enough. He went outside and yelled at her to get the fuck off their property. She slowly looked up and whispered, "You can't take us all." Whatever that meant, he told her to leave or he'd call the cops. They were both extremely spooked by this, but she never came back, so they forgot about it. A month or two went by, and they noticed that their electric bill had been very high for the past few months. My parents were very cautious with their energy use because they didn't make a lot and were trying to save up, so they were very confused. They contacted one of the owners of the house to come check for electrical issues. The house had belonged to two brothers who inherited it after their father died there. My mom didn't want to be alone when one of them was scheduled to come by, so she asked her mom to stay with her that day. Her mom knew everything that had been happening and decided to hang crosses on almost every wall in the house, including one above the front door. When the guy showed up, he literally stepped 1 foot across the threshold and immediately jerked his foot back and said he was actually going to call someone else to deal with it later. Later, they found out through a neighbor that their brother's father was a tall, mean man who always wore a black hat. I guess he didn't want anyone living in this house. Anyways, by this point, my parents were trying to leave as fast as they could. My dad picked up 2 extra jobs just to get them out faster. They saved up every last dollar until they finally had enough to leave. Once they moved, everything stopped. Whatever was tormenting them left them alone. About a year later, they were living a normal life in a new house right across from my dad's parents. One night, they were driving home from dinner and decided to take a shortcut. Out of nowhere, their car broke down in the middle of the road. When they got out, they realized that they were broken down right in front of their old house. My dad immediately jump-started the car and got the hell out of there. That was about 25 years ago. Nobody in my family has had any strange experiences since then, and I have no idea if anyone lives there or if it's just abandoned. I've never gone near it and don't ever plan to. A few nights ago, something really strange happened. I woke up around 3:30 a.m. and I was sleeping facing my 4th roommate's bed. When I opened my eyes, I saw a girl sitting on the edge of my roommate's bed. Her hair was open and she was playing with it, almost like she was trying to tie it up. At first, I thought I was just half dreaming, so I rubbed my eyes and blinked a few times, but the figure was still there. I figured it might be morning already and maybe my second roommate had woken up early and was sitting there trying to wake the 4th one up for breakfast or something. So I turned around, facing the other side of the room, towards my second roommate's bed, and there she was, sound asleep. That's when it hit me that it was still dark. I checked my phone, 3:35 a.m. I slowly turned back again to look, and the girl was still there, but this time she stood up and started walking towards the main gate of the room. I didn't dare move. I just shut my eyes and stayed frozen until I somehow fell back asleep. The next morning, I asked all my roommates if any of them were awake around that time. They all said no. Later that day, I met my old roommate. She used to stay in the same room before me, and when I told her what I saw, she went pale. She said she had seen the same thing. A girl sitting on the edge of the bed with her hair open, back when she lived there. I don't know what to make of it, but I swear what I saw was real. So I went to a college that was built in 1927. It was an all-women's Catholic college, but went co-ed the year I attended. Building I dormed in was the first building they ever built. It was an old brick building that actually had the chapel on the last floor. My room was across from an old elevator. It had a metal gate for a door and was just creepy in general. When I was looking for schools, this school had a lot of hype for it being very haunted. Stories of nuns walking the halls and an old lady who sat in the chapel late at night. I didn't believe in ghosts, so when I found out I was dorming in the building all the hauntings took place, I didn't really care. So fast forward to October. I'm now living in a dorm with 2 other girls directly across from the creepy elevator. It was close to Halloween, so a lot of the kids on campus were telling stories. One that was common was about a girl who was waiting for her boyfriend to arrive at the school to visit her and never showed up. The college back in 1927 was strict on men's visitors, so she took the elevator down to the ground floor to sneak out. I guess she waited for hours for him to arrive somewhere off campus, and he never showed. The myth was that she got so depressed, she hung herself inside the elevator, the one directly across from my room. I didn't believe the story. I actually thought it was stupid. So one night, right in late October, my roommates and I decided to go out for the night. We drank a little in our dorm, so we decided to take the elevator to be less obvious. When we got in the elevator, I said, "Who the hell would kill themselves in this gross thing?" As soon as I said that, the elevator dropped the floor, lights went out, and we were stuck in there for about 10 minutes. As soon as we got out, my roommate and I were so freaked out we could not stop screaming. The ground floor was pitch black, and the entire campus had no electricity. We found staff to tell them what happened, and they said not to worry. It was probably just an outage. That night, it was now called the blackout at Reggie's College. No explained answer, but power didn't return for over a day. Everyone besides my roommate and I partied that night because of the outage, and to this day, we all say that was the creepiest thing that had ever happened to any of us. I was babysitting my cousin's 2 young daughters one night. I was about 14 at the time. The oldest kid was 3 years and the other was around 2 months old. I'd put the 3-year-old to bed around 7:30 p.m. and the baby had settled in her crib just after 9. So all I had to do was sit and watch TV until her parents got back. At around 11 p.m. I was cuddled up on the sofa with my cousin's black Labrador when I heard the older girl scream and start to cry. I hurried up the stairs, hoping to shush her before she woke the baby. The dog followed me as far as the staircase. He got to the stairs and just sat down, staring after me. I didn't think about it at the time. My focus was on the kid. But that dog was allowed upstairs, though there were times when he simply wouldn't always go up there, no matter how much you begged him or bribed him. I get to the kid's room and she's standing up on her bed crying her heart out. She sees me come through the door and immediately begins to scream, "The man! The man!" while frantically pointing to the corner to my left, blocked from my view by the open door. Thinking intruder, I charge in and grab the kid off the bed. I don't look in the corner. Some instinct tells me not to look, to just grab the girl and go. Even as I turn around and dash out of the room, I don't look in that corner. I just keep my head down, pointed toward the wall, and run. On my way to the stairs, I pass the baby's nursery and go in to grab her. To my utter surprise, this helpless newborn was lying in the middle of the floor, about 8 feet away from the crib. The sides of the crib were still securely up, so she couldn't have rolled out, and I very much doubt the 3-year-old could have lifted the baby over the railing of the crib, or even battled with the railing to put it up and down. Downstairs, the dog begins to half bark, half whine. I scooped the baby up from the floor and fled for the stairs, baby in one arm and holding the 3-year-old's hand with my free hand. I think I more or less dragged the kid down the stairs. Her feet couldn't have possibly kept up with my charge down the stairs. The dog was hiding under the hall table. I shouted his name, hoping he'd follow us, but he just whined in response. I left him, going through the kitchen and out of the backdrop into the garden, where a gap in the hedge took me straight into the neighbor's garden. I hammered on their back door, shouting for them to please answer. The poor neighbors had obviously been in bed. Nonetheless, they let me and the kids inside their house, and the woman stays with us in the living room while her husband and teenage son go to check out my cousin's house. The 3-year-old is still hysterical, blabbering about the man. The neighbors return and report that all windows and doors were locked, and there were no signs of a break-in. They mentioned the double closet doors in one of the rooms were open, but they made sure no one was hiding in there. The dog still refused to move from under the hall table. They let us stay in their house until my very drunk cousin and her equally drunken husband returned from their night out just after midnight. They sobered up pretty quickly with concern when they found us at the neighbor's house. Back in their house, I told them what had happened. While I waited for my dad to pick me up, neither of them seemed at all surprised at what I had said. Apparently, the 3-year-old often complained of the man, and that she'd even taken tying the handles of her closet doors together with string so that they wouldn't open, and became upset when the man untied them. They simply said he was her imaginary friend. She was reacting pretty hysterically about something imaginary. The next day, I called my cousin to check everything was alright. She confirmed everything was fine now, but then told me that when they went to bed after I left, the 3-year-old refused point blank to sleep in her room. So she slept in her parents' bed with her mother, whilst her dad slept in her room. During the night, he's woken up to see a pair of legs standing in front of his face. Not wanting to see who it was attached to those legs, He closed his eyes for a few seconds, and when he opened them again, nothing was there. 12 years on, I still don't like visiting my cousin's house. The 3-year-old is now 15 and still ties her closet shut, and the baby is now 12 and often complains of white face, who stands at the top of the stairs and stares at her if her bedroom door is open. According to her description, he has no eyes, no nose, and no mouth, just a blank white face. Have a paranormal experience of your own? Share it with us at officialphantom.mic@gmail.com. Whether in text or voice recording, we want to hear your story. Thank you for tuning in to Phantom Mic, and remember, if you still feel alone, you weren't listening closely enough.